Celebrating 45 years on the air, award-winning Farmweek is a production of Mississippi State University Extension.
Today on Thanksgiving, a Farm Week features show beginning with how input prices are rising. In Southern Gardening, Gary says if you're looking for treasure, you might find it in your landscape. In a special look back, Mr. George Berry, who carved an amazing reputation. And not to be outdone, a crop that stands the test of time and stands tall in the process. Farm Week starts right now. Hello everybody, I'm Mike Russell. Happy Thanksgiving. Good to have you with us once again here on Farm Week. As many of us settle in for a turkey day that's bound to be a bit more expensive this year, it might be interesting to know that the farm sector is riding the input price rocket ship as well. Natural gas, the key ingredient in many products, hasn't been at this level since 2013. An October spike is now trickling down to farmers. Colleen Bradford-Krantz has the story.
The Ori family usually waits for spring before applying nitrogen-based fertilizer to their fields. But the recent spike in anhydrous ammonia and other fertilizer prices convinced the Earlham, Iowa row crop and cattle producers to make time last week.
Fertilizer's gone through the roof, and kind of why we're going after it as fast as we can now, make sure we get what we locked in to try and help secure profits or make next year more profitable.
Ori says they pre-purchased anhydrous ammonia in the summer, anticipating a supply crunch. But that price lock was dependent on application being completed before year's end.
That's kind of why the rush now for what prices have gone to, and make it pretty difficult to get excited about next year. The ones that I talked to that hadn't locked in seemed a little nervous, hoping for maybe some better stuff in the spring.
The USDA's Illinois Production Cost Report from November 4th shows that anhydrous ammonia, a nitrogen-based fertilizer, hit an average of $1,205 per ton, just exceeding the prices reported in 2008. Prices for other fertilizer ingredients and blends have also climbed dramatically.
Starting out in June, July, when we had preseason prices, they were already high. And then going on throughout the season of prepay, trying to get people to commit to a price then. And then they just keep going up and up and up. But now it's at an all-time high that I've at least seen and that most of the growers that I deal with have seen in their lifetimes. I think every farmer's used to a little bit of uncertainty, but everybody's a little bit more stressed right now.
The commodity prices in most of the major grain markets have helped better position farmers to face this kind of financial challenge. But Brigham with Landis says many are analyzing spreadsheets as they decide how to balance against increased input prices, particularly if chemicals and seed prices also run high in the spring. The uncertainty of government support going forward makes planning even more difficult. U.S. net farm income in 2020 featured the highest percentage of government funds in recent history at 39%. That number is projected to be down in 2021 as COVID-related payments fall off. But the plans for 2022 support remain uncertain.
The things that they can rely on and focus on are their input costs, anywhere from fungicide to your fertilizer, your seed. You got to have that all down pat because that is something that you can control. And then the uncontrollables like government subsidies and Mother Nature, you just kind of got to roll with the punches on those.
The owner of another retail provider of agricultural fertilizer and other supplies, Ag Hub Midwest, based near Menlo, Iowa, agreed that farmers are at least discussing planting less corn, a crop where nitrogen application is more critical.
A lot of guys are taking a look at crop rotation, maybe not doing the corn on corn, maybe looking at a few more soybean acres.
However, both men advised not rushing any decisions.
There's a lot of instances that are, 3 times the cost per N unit, and it's a big sticker shock, and just trying to work through that with growers. to regroup and put a plan together.
Samuel Taylor, Executive Director of Research for Farm Inputs at Rabobank, said the pattern shift began in the spring.
But right up until about May of this year, there was quite a nice trend line where commodity prices and fertilizer prices moved in a relative lockstep. I'd say since May, you've seen a fall off in the corn and soybean price. And at that point, you've seen a relative dislocation between the price of fertilizers and the price of commodities. And that's kind of shifted the affordability of a lot of these inputs.
Taylor, based in New York, said most of the causes are related to various public policy decisions, both in the U.S. and elsewhere.
You look for things like sanctions on the Belarusian potash production, which accounts for about 13 million metric tons globally. You look at other threats or risks of countervailing duties to products. You look at energy costs, so that's both in China and in Europe, particularly on the nitrogen side. And then you look at other issues like the export limitations on phosphates and urea. So you've gone from, let's say, August of last year through to May of this year, a demand-driven market. And then all of a sudden, from about May onwards, you've really gone into a supply-constrained market.
The market for natural gas, which accounts for 60% or more of the cost of producing anhydrous ammonia, is one of the key factors indirectly driving up nitrogen prices.
What you saw in Europe was you saw high natural gas prices curtail massive amounts of production. Millions of metric tons of capacity coming offline. I think it's something like 12% of ammonia production in Europe come offline, 25% curtailed.
Taylor says farmers may be able to shift money they've set aside for new farm machinery if it's unavailable due to supply chain or labor issues. However, he also encourages farmers to explore new options for boosting income, whether that's trying an alternative crop or participating in the government's carbon sequestration programs.
Farmers, and I include my septuagenarian father in this, farmers like to do what they like to do, and sometimes you need a kind of a glaring opportunity, but there is still the potential for growers to basically be rewarded for what they do best with historical things. I mean, if you look at things like the scorecard system on a lot of the carbon sequestration, rewarding you for no-tilling. Farmers have been no-tilling for a long time. Why not get a little bit extra on that? I try and think of something positive for growers for the 2022 season. Let's hope for good weather. Should we say that?
On the lighter side, in southern gardening, you might not expect nuggets of gold in your backyard, but that doesn't mean you don't have to experience a little gold rush. Gary Bachman says with a little effort, there's some real treasure to be found out there. Here's Gary.
Today's Southern Gardening is back at the Truck Crops branch station in Crystal Springs. Let's take a look at a couple of gorgeous golden fall season landscape plants. The first fall season treasure is Caryopteris goldcrest. Caryopteris is a perennial mounding shrub that's commonly called bluebeard. This selection is a late bloomer and is a wonderful plant for the fall season when the flowers start to develop. Goldcrest bluebeard displays vivid, bright blue flowers, which I absolutely love. When the blue flowers are viewed against the golden chartreuse foliage, the contrast is stunning. Even more stunning is the number of various bees visiting the flowers. The plants seem to move with the bees and even buzz. Goldcrest prefers full sun and moist, well-drained soil, but tolerates drier soil once established. The second fall treasure is a member of the luscious Lantana series, which Southern Gardening has shown through the years. We've shown selections like Citrus Blend and Royal Cosmo, and who can forget luscious Lemonade? The newest member of the series is luscious Golden Gate. This plant loves heat and droughty conditions, which makes it perfect for our Mississippi gardens and landscapes. The plant is well branched with a mounding and spreading growth habit. The flowers are a beautiful deep golden yellow and literally cover the plant, especially when planted in the full sun. And like all antenna, Golden Gate is a butterfly magnet. The fall season is a great time to plant and share yellow gold landscape color. I'm horticulturist Gary Bachman, and I'll see you next time on Southern Garden.
We'll take a break right here, but don't go away. Coming up in our Farm Week feature, an ag bright spot in the middle of the drought. A great story, decades in the making. When the farm crisis hit 40 years ago, one family survived thanks to sunflowers. Now, despite the dryness, demand is up and so are prices. Even with COVID, they're through the roof. The industry could actually support another 1 million acres. There's more competition though, and that and the rest of the story coming up on Farm Week. Don't go away.
Hi, I'm David Buys.
And I'm Katie Buys.
We know how important it is to take your health questions to experts you can trust,
who offer answers based on science.
The science shows that the COVID vaccine is safe and effective at preventing the disease. Hundreds of millions of people have received the vaccine so far with very few side effects.
But choosing to delay getting the vaccine increases the chance that COVID will spread. When it spreads, it mutates or develops variants. And we're seeing that variants can be even more dangerous than the original virus.
Getting the vaccine is a personal decision. And when you choose to get it, you're protecting yourself, your family, and your neighbors. You're also protecting the most vulnerable people who can't take the vaccine. People being treated for cancer or organ transplants, people with serious illnesses, and small children. So get the answers you need.
And get the vaccine.
You'll be a hero.
Hi, I'm Jonah Holland, and I'm a communication major at Mississippi State University. As a college student, I'm young and generally pretty healthy. I try to take care of myself, but the coronavirus, especially the Delta variant, doesn't care about that. It's putting both young and healthy people alike in the hospital, not just older, sicker people. The best defense we have is the COVID-19 vaccine, and the first one has just received full approval from the FDA. Billions of people around the world have received it, and the science shows it is safe and effective. Right now, in Mississippi, more than 85% of people in the hospital with COVID are unvaccinated. 85%. Think about that. So don't wait. Talk to your doctor or pharmacist, get the facts you need, and get the vaccine. You'll be a hero.
Every day, real people are solving problems, learning skills, and achieving goals through Extension education. We care about their success and yours. Extending knowledge, changing lives. The MSU Extension Service.
And now for a trip back in time. 21 years ago, Farm Week reporter Brian Utley, still a producer in our AgCom unit at Mississippi State, visited with a gentleman in Rankin County known for his wood carvings. George Berry passed away in 2014, but back in 2000, his work was well known. We bring you that story, which begins with an introduction by former Farm Week anchor Leighton Spann.
There are many different methods people use in order to relax. For some, it may be reading a book or going on a long walk. A man from Rankin County has a special method he uses. It's wood carving. George Berry has been relaxing now for more than 50 years, carving out animals that are commonly seen in Mississippi. And he does it all with a pocket knife. Farm Week's Brian Utley tells us more.
Take a drive across Mississippi, and you're likely to come across some of the animals and wildlife that are central to the state. Stop in at George Berry's workshop in Richland, and you'll see some wooden replicas of these creatures that are almost lifelike. Berry learned the trade from his father at the early age of 7. Wood carving was used as a way to relax and pass the time.
I used to watch my dad after working all day, stand at the end of the row after he was plowing or whatever, and he would stop to rest the horses and pick up a stick and start just cutting on it.
What began as a hobby has since turned into something much larger. Hard work has helped Barry make a name for himself as an artist and a teacher. Perhaps the most amazing thing about his career is that all his carvings are created with a pocket knife.
It came natural for me to work like this, to do this. It's a gift, and I've always pursued it and practiced it, and this is what it's turning into now.
Barry moved to Mississippi from Oklahoma in 1972 to be an industrial arts instructor at the Piney Woods School. Life in Mississippi has been good as he has achieved numerous awards and recognition for his work. In 1984, he was chosen to demonstrate wood carving in the Mississippi exhibit at the World's Fair. He has been featured in magazines such as Southern Living and the book Craft in America by Phyllis George. He also had one of his pieces featured on the cover of the 1993 South Central Bell telephone book, and the list goes on. The thing that sets Barry apart from other wood carvers is the fact that he doesn't use expensive machines for his work. He uses his hands. This is a distinction that he stresses.
I want him to know that I do it all by hand. I do it the old-fashioned way. That's done by the machine, that's there, and this is mine. And to me, the difference in doing that is, let me put it this way. If I go out here and dig a hole with a shovel, and you go out here and take a bulldozer, there's a lot of difference between that and this thing.
Wood carving is rarely taught in school classrooms, and Barry feels it is becoming a lost art. To share his love of carving with others, he often does demonstrations in schools, museums, and festivals. As a charter member of the Craftsmen's Guild of Mississippi, he also teaches year-round carving classes at the Chimneyville Crafts Gallery. Many of his students describe the experience as an escape.
Taking his class is just so relaxing. It's almost peaceful after a long day's work. You come in here and he's such an easy teacher and funny and easy to get along with that it's almost therapeutic.
I think people are starting to recognize that this is not just a wood carver. There's lots of wood carvers out there, but he's really a unique wood carver. I mean, he has this ease about him that makes him look like he could do it with his eyes closed and still come out with a wonderful piece.
Establishing a connection with people is what Barry strives for in his work. He wants them to see how good carving is for the soul.
This makes me care about myself, and I'm hoping that this will rub off on other people, that no matter whether they are carving, drawing, or whatever it is, that they will feel good about it themselves, good enough to care about themselves.
George Barry says he realizes that God has given him a special talent, and he doesn't take it for granted.
If I don't do the things that he gave me to do and the things that he blessed me to do, then I'm going to eventually lose it. So I made the decision to do what he gave me to do, and I feel, and he blessed me since.
More and more of Barry's time is spent going out and studying the animals he carves, paying close attention to their fine lines and intricate details, all in the pursuit of that perfect wood carving. He still participates in many arts and craft festivals across the state, so if you get a chance, stop in. You might get to meet a true Southern craftsman and gentleman. From Richland, I'm Brian Utley reporting.
Great story. Now an ag success story that actually got its start in the 1980s farm crisis and was helped, sort of, by the dryness of droughts along the way, including the current one. 40 years ago, the Ettinger family was just looking for a way to make a little extra money, but a decision to plant sunflowers turned out to be the seed of a bright change of fortune. Once again, Colleen Bradford-Krantz has the story.
The 1980s farm crisis hit southeastern South Dakota just like it did the rest of the country, bringing a severe economic downturn that affected many farmers and their communities. The Ettinger family of White Lake survived the crisis by relying on their father Wayne's second income as a teacher. But they received additional help when the elder Ettinger planted a field of sunflowers.
It was tough times in the 80s. Dad was, luckily for us, did a good job of forward thinking.
40 years later, his sons, Charlie and Chet, still raise sunflowers, dedicating about 15% of their row crop acres to the edible seeds.
I would say year in, year out, they're one of our best money-making crops. I mean, it is definitely challenging. I think we live in a good area with our amount of rainfall, or our climates and soils that, we're in that 20 to 24 inches of rainfall every year, so they're a good dry weather hedge.
The 2021 growing season offered a challenging dry weather test for many sunflower growing regions.
In the Dakotas and Minnesota, throughout the growing season, about 95% of the growing area has either been from a severe to exceptional drought. The conditions here have been just awful. I mean, producers in some areas planted seeds of other crops. They didn't germinate, they didn't come up.
Sunflowers, often planted last in the northern plains, caught some of the limited rains in those key regions. USDA estimates that yields are down about 13%, but some industry leaders had expected worse.
In comparison to some other crops, I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, honestly, that's very good considering some places maybe had 6 inches of moisture since January 1st.
With total pounds produced nationwide expected to be down, sunflower prices have already climbed, reaching a point not seen since a similar drought a decade ago.
And obviously some of that is people, trying to position themselves to get stocks to last throughout the year to buy ahead. But in just the demand for the seed, I mean, when I look at what oil is being crushed and what was left over in stocks at the end of a month, there's not a lot left. I mean, it's moving out the door because of the demand.
The health benefits, large amounts of vitamin E and high monounsaturated fat content, have kept demand high. Sales of the black oil varieties, crushed for cooking oil, and confection varieties, used for human consumption, are regaining some lost ground. And sales are booming for sunflowers used as bird feed.
With COVID, our numbers have really gone through the roof. I mean, it's just been incredible. The amount of people obviously being stuck at home, looking for something to do just to pass time. And so bird feeding has really had a resurgence here.
Bachman believes the U.S. sunflower industry could easily support another 1 million acres of production on top of the estimated 1.3 million acres grown in 2021. The Ettinger brothers, who now raise confection sunflowers for human consumption, are based in southeast South Dakota, which, as of October 5th, 2021, had received less than 14 inches of precipitation, 7 inches shy of normal. Even with the reduced moisture, their sunflower crop still did well, beating their 5-year average yield by 22%. Charlie says that anyone considering getting into sunflower production, however, needs to be ready to work.
Insects can be a challenge. Seed weevils, sunflower moths, diseases can be a challenge if you're in a wetter climate. They may not be a good fit for you. Blackbirds are one of our biggest challenges here. If you're to start raising sunflowers, I would probably start with the black oil variety. That way you can kind of get a feel on how to raise them, any other production issues you might have with them before trying to go towards a more specialty option.
Once their sunflowers are harvested, the Ettinger's edible seeds are delivered to Advanced Sunflower in Huron, South Dakota, an hour's drive to the north. Advanced Sunflower handles about 120 million pounds of sunflower seeds annually. The seeds are cleaned, sorted by size, roasted, salted or flavored, and sometimes dehulled. Nationally, about 15% of sunflower seeds are exported. But that represents a decline as the U.S. now faces more competition from overseas sources than it has in the past.
The U.S. was primary area where the selective breeding was done to move them from wild to something we could use for snacks and oil and that. But now some other countries have gotten into producing sunflower seeds, so there's been a shift in the last 15 years, and it's been a challenge to keep up with their prices.
Sunflowers are typically contracted ahead of time by companies like Advanced.
Sunflower is not a price leader, it's a follower. So if corn and beans go down, sunflowers go down. And if they go up, sunflowers go up. We have to pay a competitive price to get to buy the acres. Some years it's a struggle and some years it's pretty easy. This year was a great year to grow sunflower because it's been so dry, and sunflowers actually prefer it dry.
Something that happened this year that I haven't seen in a long time is that we had 2022 new crop prices out in August. And that's rare. Normally in this industry, we wouldn't see a new crop price till October, even into November sometimes. That the crushing industry, the confection industry, they all want to start getting acres lined up already. They just want to get crop in the ground as soon as possible and, expand acres for next year.
Nothing like a break on prices to inspire a little more success. Well, next time on Farm Week, something perfect for this time of year. Before you can decorate it, light it up, or stash presents under it, you've got to find your Christmas tree. Just in time for the big day and encore, Zach Ashmore goes off the highway at a Christmas tree farm in Amory, Mississippi, and boy, are those beauties worthy. Go behind the scenes where traditions are born and the firs, spruces, and pines grow tall. Holiday stories don't get much better than this one. That's next time on Farm Week. Remember, if you missed a story, look for past episodes of Farm Week on our website at farmweek.tv, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube as well. See you next week. Thanks for watching.